Hello there everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today I'm going to be sharing with you how I've created these two cards, and I'm going to be adding a little dimension with nesting frame dies as well, just to give a little bit of interest between each of the two cards. So to start with, I am going to be using two panels of cardstock. One is watercolor cardstock from Altenew and the other is classic Crest Solar White, and you can see that these do match perfectly. So I'm going to be using this beautiful outline image from the Blossom Wreath, and I'm going to be stamping this into position on both of the panels using my Misty. I'm using my Misty so that they're in exactly the same place on each of the two panels. So I'm going to be using my Obsidian ink for this. I am going to be watercoloring on the watercolor one, so that's why I'm using my Obsidian, because it is watercolor friendly. Also, it is my favorite black ink of all time. It works so well. It's so dark, bold and black, and also gets in all of those little details. So once I have stamped the first panel, I'm then going to stamp the second. And then once I have stamped this in place, you can see that both of the two images are in exactly the same place on both of the panels. So I'm then going to move on to my watercolor panel. I've moved my other one off to the side because I don't need it just yet. I'm using my Artist 24 pan set from Altenew, and I'm just mixing these two colors together. So it's the shades of purple and also the cherry blossom. This is going to give me a really beautiful purple. And I'm just going to use this to colour in my larger little blossoms on this little wreath here. So I'm just adding a little bit of water down first and then dropping the colour in. Now you can see I do have a little bit of a baby wipe at the side of me. This is to make sure that I don't add too much colour down, so I can use this to clean off my brush between adding the colour and the water onto the little blossoms. It's a really great trick to do to make sure that your little brush is nice and clean as you keep going with your project. So I've just gone in a little bit of a close-up zoom so you can see exactly what's happening here. So I'm adding the water down into those little beautiful little blossoms, and I'm then adding the darker colour just to the base. So the water that's down there is going to kind of do the blending for you, so you don't need to worry too much about blending. So once all of these little blossoms have been coloured, I'm then going to move on to the smaller ones. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of blue into that colour that we've just mixed, and this is going to give us a beautiful violet colour. So for these ones, because they are so small, you don't necessarily need to pop a little bit of water down first, because the blending is not going to take too much just for these tiny little images. So I'm just dropping the colour directly from the one that we've just mixed. You can add a little bit of water if you do want it lighter. Now I want to create more of a creamy colour for this one, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of that white from the palette into that purple colour that we've just mixed, and a little bit of purple too. And I'm just going to drip this colour, little dabs and drops here and there, to add the little blossom onto the little sticky branches that we have on the blossom branch wreath. So I'm then going to do myself a green. Now the greens in here are pretty, but I did want a different shade, so I'm adding a dark green, a little bit of that really great navy colour, and to tone this down I'm just going to add a little bit of brown too. That's going to take some harshness away from that green. I'm then going to add the colour in. As before, I believe that these images are quite small, so I don't necessarily need to add some water down first. So I'm just going to go directly into those little leaves, adding this little green colour that we have just created. I am really liking this one, and I think I will use this colour more and more, and just adding that brown really tones it down quite a lot. So once that's done, I've let that dry. I'm then going to add in my sentiment. Now this sentiment is from the Blossom Wreath stamp set, so I just got my sweet into position first, and then have a and then day at the bottom of it. And I am going to stamp these using the Obsidian ink on both of the panels using my Misty. I'm then taking two of the dies from the Soda Top Nesting Die set, and I'm going to use these to cut my wreath out. Now there is a coordinating die for the wreath, but I kind of want things overhanging. Now I want to cut these in exactly the same place on each of the little panels, so I have a piece of acetate to help me. I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to the behind of these dies, and I'm just going to pop them into place onto my panel. I'm using my Altenew tape runner. This works perfectly for this. So I'm just going to line these up. I'm then going to take a piece of acetate and I'm just going to line this up along the right hand edge of my card and also the top edge. So both of these are lined up, so when I move this onto the other card, it's going to be in exactly the same place. As I don't want this to move, I'm going to add a little bit of tape onto the top so it stays in place, and as you can see, those dies are adhered to that little sheet, so they're not going to move around either. I'm just going to run that through my die cutting machine, and once I've done that, I'm going to remove the inside pieces here. Now you don't want to move those dies, so be very, very careful when you do remove these pieces. You could just add a little hole through the acetate if you wanted to as well. So once I have those pieces out, I can remove this from my little panel and then add this on. Again, I'm going to line this up with the right hand edge and also the top, so it's in exactly the same place. Once it's in the place, I'm going to add that tape back into position and run that through my die cutting machine also. So once I've done that, I'm going to gently remove this, so I now have all the pieces for both of my cards. So what I'm going to do is adhere the panels down first. So these are the largest pieces, and I'm adding these onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base. Again, I'm using my Altenew tape glue to do this. I then have these inside pieces, and I'm going to switch them around on each of the cards so we get a different look. I'm going to line them up so that they fit perfectly within each other, and then add the same sentiment from the panel into the card. So I'm just using this as a little guide. I can then remove the pieces that we just popped in place and add a little bit of foam tape behind them. Now you don't need to do this if you don't want to. You could have it nice and flat for postage, but I do feel a little bit of dimension really does add some interest. I'm adding the foam tape and then removing the backing, and then I'm going to pop this back into place where it needs to be so all of the images line up. It's a really great way to add a lot of dimension and different interest to each of the cards. A little bit more colour, I'm adding some of the enamel dots from the R family collection. These colours work perfectly with the ones that we've just created. So here are the two cards complete. I really do love how these look. They do have a slightly different look, as one has the watercolouring in the wreath and then the other one has it poking from behind the wreath. It looks really, really cool. So everyone, thank you so much for watching. I really do hope that you've enjoyed the video and that you like the technique as well. If you create something that was inspired by this, it'd be great if you do share. I'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching. Hello there, crafty friend, Lydia here. Just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Altenew YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.